I'm going to ask each of the panel to kick off by outlining what they see as the biggest digital opportunities for their particular business. We're just going to take a couple minutes each on that, and then we're going to get into a panel discussion about how industries are transforming. So, Klas, if I can start with yourself.
Absolutely.
What do you see as the biggest opportunities for your business?
Well, at the moment, we are in the time slot where it's actually the best time ever to be a group CIO in an automotive company. Because change is happening here and now, a lot of opportunities. And for us in automotive, digitalization is not something that will happen. Digitalization is something that is happening here and now. And it is dramatically changing the way we purchase a vehicle, the way we own a vehicle, the way we use it, the way we drive it, the way we take care of it after we have purchased it or after we have used it. And this is a fantastic area where the automotive industry is learning a lot from other industries, but at the same time also paving the way for other industries.
So you can build an ongoing relationship with the customers through the digitization.
Digitalization, actually, as we all know, based on different type of industries, what we see is that digitalization and software connections actually becomes like invisible strings with the customer, with the society, and also how we leverage these type of opportunities. And this is now happening in the automotive industry here and now.
Okay, let's get Ulf's thoughts. What are the biggest opportunities for Ericsson?
For Ericsson, for the industry, I think we started already 5 years ago and really talk about the network society. Everything can benefit from a connection. We'll have one. And now we're here. Now the whole world is really starting to embrace it. I think what is happening outside the telecommunication world is bigger than what's happening inside.
Right.
And I think all those clouds, automotive clouds, are asking to be connected. They're asking what this technology can really do for it. I think the biggest opportunity that the industry has is to live up to that, to live up to the promise, to be able to deliver a performance that can really make other industries and clouds realize their visions and what they really want to do. I think we passed the inflection point.
Right.
We're already way into the network society. I think sometimes we talk about visionary stuff when we meet, but still the biggest visions are happening outside. Now it's for those networks to really deliver that, to be able to build frameworks, to build the APIs, to standardize, to be in the TM forum, to talk about other industries connecting in. I think that's it.
Okay, let's get Julie to build on that. Biggest opportunities for Tata?
Well, Tata Communications is looking at it from a B2B perspective. And I was quite interested, I don't know whether anybody here saw the MIT Sloan report. And as a sector, telecoms is actually doing quite well. So our digital index is around 78%. You know, we're not the top of the stack, but actually we've got significant progress made. What was interesting for me, though, less than 10% of our revenue come from digital as a sector. And so looking at that from a Tata Communications perspective, we see it in two ways. We're CapEx intensive, and so we're using digital to achieve reasonable return on capitals. We're growing 25%, and we're looking at doing that without spending a lot more CapEx. So digitizing across all of our customer touch points to, on a fixed asset base, support significantly higher volume is a big part of our foundation digital work. What was quite intriguing from this report, and I related to it, telecoms, MIT classified us as fashionistas, and they said a lot of telecoms are digitizing in silos because, you know, we've got a propensity to innovate. And so, of course, there's lots of digitization in my company in the silos that we can maybe talk about later. My last point is around cloud. If you take digital, certainly with my CMO hat on, we don't see digital isolated. We see digital, mobile, social, big data, and cloud.
Right.
And so outwards facing, actually providing a cloud platform to enterprises that just works so that that's not a barrier to growth or deployment is where we see the biggest market-facing opportunity for digital.
Which industry scored best in the MIT?
Well, the best quadrant to be in is what they classify as Digerati, and it was born on the web tech, but finance and retail also quite.
Okay.
But we weren't doing badly as a sector. We shouldn't beat ourselves up too much.
Okay, so Klas, there's a challenge for you, get automotive into that top quadrant. But let's talk a little bit about how the automotive industry is changing. We've heard about Google's autonomous cars. There's rumors that Apple might get into the automotive industry. Clearly, it's seen as a big opportunity, the whole digitization of the automotive sector. So how do you think the industry will change?
If we look for it from a practical perspective, we can see that digitalization, it's changing, for example, the way we actually purchase a vehicle today. So the activities you do before you acquire one way or the other or get use of a car or a transport today, that is changing. You can also see clearly that digitalization is changing the way we develop, the way we produce a car today. Because there we also see within Volvo a dramatic change, enabling by sensors, mobility, cloud services coming in. And lastly, and most likely most important, is actually the way the car, the customer can be connected. What is happening in and around the vehicles, which benefits the customers. And we clearly see that, for example, in the areas you mentioned around autonomous drive, how that is changing and impacting. And of course, we see it already here and now today with adaptive cruise control, with city safety solution where the car stops in itself, sensors primarily developed through other industries as a starting point, then coming into the automotive industry, enabling all these type of features and functions.
Just quick follow-up on that. How fast do you see the industry moving to autonomous cars? There's a lot of forecasts between 10 and 30, 40 years. Do you have any feel for how quickly it will get there?
I mean, we have it today available, and we've all seen, for example, a number of different OEMs doing pilots, for example, driving around in 200 kilometers per hour on Nürburgring. We have also seen a number of other OEMs doing trials. For example, in Volvo, we are putting now by 2017 100 vehicles on the streets of Gothenburg that on dedicated roads will be able to completely be autonomous.
Okay.
And they will be driven by normal people on normal roads. Right. And that's an important step in actually putting this type of technology and features on normal roads among normal customers.
Yeah, that's the big leap. So it's just 2 years away.
Yes, it is just 2 years away.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how your industry is changing. We've heard a lot this week already about NFV, SDN, the whole software movement, etc. How does that impact what you do and the wider ecosystem?
Well, I mean, obviously, the kind of technologies that we're quickly embracing into the telco industry now, like SDN and service provider SDN, as we've talked about, the distributed cloud functionality where computing moves to the edge of the network in much bigger degrees than before, the way that we distribute and drive computing inside a whole network, looking at the network as a platform for innovation for other industries, which is really where we want to go with this. Being able then to use the mechanisms on top of the network, the orchestration, the management of resources, the policy controls, the billing, the charging, the evolution of OSS, to be able to do things like we can do with Volvo. And then I think it's fantastic for us to see how much we learn from these engagements. We can see that Volvo is repositioning himself, if you excuse me for really saying that. But
it's better that you say it than I do.
No, but you're using this as a competitive advantage. It's a brand that can really build on that. Your safety approach and so on. And then you're looking at using that transformation. We talk about closed loop information. And sensors around the car, that's your sensors in the car, but there are also sensors on the road, and there are sensors in the city, and all of a sudden it all comes together into something that provides new business models, new ways of working, and the technology of connectivity really comes to its full right. I guess the biggest challenge for the telco industry is to transform these networks into really provide those platforms. And that's a very big challenge. The demand that comes from a guy like Klas is higher than we can really live up to at the moment when it comes to performance and all that. Have those self-driving cars is fantastic. We can really, I think the industry has the technology. It's a matter of putting it to the ground, execute, and get it going.
Before we move to Julia, a quick response on that.
No, and I think just to give you a flavor of the practical aspects, with our connected vehicles today, we deploy them globally in the US, in the China, and in Europe at the same time, at the same technical standards and platform. And that's a huge challenge for an automotive company and its partners through that whole ecosystem of actually deploying that within weeks and having customers that are paying a couple of 100,000 SEK up to close to 100,000 US dollars, for example, for a vehicle. Their expectations on the performance, the perception, and what type of image effect it will have for them, it's huge.
Yeah.
And that's a dramatic change also for the automotive industry.
Yeah, quite. Okay, Julie, let's get your thoughts on how telecoms will change. We've talked a little bit about the software side of things.
Well, first, I am a normal person who did drive the Google autonomous car. It was about a year ago.
Did you drive it?
Yeah.
But it was autonomous.
Well, I was sat in it, and it was in, I don't know whether any of you have worked with an organization called Singularity University. They're dedicated to helping individuals and companies take advantage of exponential technologies, so anything that can change 1 billion people's lives in a decade. It's a fascinating university, and Google were there, and it was really intriguing how quickly the brain adjusted to letting go. You know, the first 30 seconds, it was just pure fear, and then the next minute was, you know, casually talk, you know, not even wanting to look where you were going. So it'd be interesting how the deployment goes. And I think Ulf has said quite a lot about what's happening in the sector, and so I won't dwell too much on that. I think the big change has been telecommunications companies truly realizing that we actually have a platform.
Absolutely.
And it was, you know, the OTTs who made this a very trendy phrase, but we actually have a platform, and, you know, Tata Communications, a lot of the other big providers are, you know, now as default opening up APIs, and which, you know, even a few years ago, this would have, you know, just not been in anybody's DNA. But I would say, in terms of my industry, the biggest step we have to take is embracing new business models.
Yeah.
You know, I was a judge on the awards, the Excellence Awards, overwhelmed and proud of the innovation in this sector. But so many of them require our CFOs to have a leap of faith into new business models. I have a digital team who are working on some new products, and they just don't cost in on basic, you know, IRR models. You've got to value the data you're collecting. You've got to value the number of, you know, subscribers you have, and it's a completely different model. And the leaders, you know, going back to this MIT survey, the leaders were actually significantly ahead on the just ability to onboard new business models. So I think that as a sector is something that we have to spend more time educating our CFO and, you know, our stakeholders, our shareholders, that to make these big steps, you're not going to do it based on the legacy business models.
Let's just deep dive a little bit further on that, because Mark, who mentioned the concept from Facebook, mentioned the concept of engaging first, monetizing second. I think that's a little bit what you're talking about. Do you think telcos culturally are ready to do that?
In parts. I think it's back to that fashionista. You will get, you know, you will have a risk appetite to do some of that. I mean, and we're acknowledging that our P&L isn't Facebook's P&L.
No.
We're coming from a different place. So we're basically trying different models. An example is we're just participating in a fund of funds along with 4 other telcos. And so we, every year, get access to 200 startups, and we're going to collectively invest in 20. But they are specifically for the shape of the business I'm trying to build.
Yeah.
They're not sort of B2C, you know, they're not going too wide. So the fund of fund is a model that we're using, and, you know, other models, because I personally don't think it can all be done within the BAU business.
Yeah, okay.
It's actually scientific proven, what you say. We did a study in Ericsson that we called the growth codes. We wanted to figure out which ones of our customers were most successful in EBITDA measures. And then we studied all of our customers, and the ones that were brave when it came to investments and thinking new business models actually come out higher on the EBITDA level than the holding back. So there is something with that, the Facebook comment that you made.
Well, just a quick follow-up to that. Do you think your customers also are too risk-averse? Do you think they're too focused on the next quarter rather than the long term?
Well, many of them are here, so I'm going to say no. It's all wonderfully great investors and thinking ahead. But somehow the industry is, when we hear about these opportunities and we realize that how much is really going to be there, the biggest shortcoming in that is our ability to transform the networks to really live up to that promise. And looking at the kind of requirements we're getting at, and we can't wait for 5G. I mean, this has to be a process of an evolution of the networks to really get there. And we can't expect anyone to go out and just buy a completely new network. This has to be something that's built in. And that requires a big transformation and a brave approach when it comes to new technologies and being able to deploy them. Till we can meet the kind of requirements that Klas self-driving 100 cars in Gothenburg will really demand. And it is high requirements.
Yeah, let's move on to the network, actually.
Yeah, but because I think, to be practical on that theme, I think every company, including ourselves, we are to some extent very risk-averse. We would like to have confidence what we will earn and EBIT levels for the next couple of quarters. But at the same time, we also need to develop our own capabilities for the future. And I think what we see now happening today is actually a situation where if traditional companies, and I think we all that are participating here, one way or the other, are partly traditional companies. If we don't embrace and innovate around the new opportunities, someone else will.
Yeah.
And then we are losers in that end anyway.
It's the innovator's dilemma.
Yeah, but it's also very important for big players because now technology and processes are changing so rapidly. And from an automotive perspective, coming back to the network side, for us with connected vehicles, one of the biggest challenges is actually roaming. Roaming between countries. All of a sudden, people, we have a free float between people between borders, for example, in Europe. People going on vacation. And then it's a big hassle for roaming with the connected vehicles, services, entertainment into the cars and the connected customers. And that is just one proof point that our type of industry that is represented here today have not managed to stay on top of the development in society in general.
Yeah. Julie,
but that's a great example because there are technical solutions that exist today, you know, broadly known as Roam Like Home. But it requires such collaboration across the ecosystem. And if people have vested interest in a national market and are trying to protect short-term profit streams, and we can all understand why, then you can't move the whole industry forward. So, you know, I think that's something of a challenge we have to find a way through, that it's not the technical platforms that are holding back. You know, we were talking in the green room about the need for this industry to develop win-win ecosystems, and you won't always win the most, but let's try and minimize the losers, so that the ecosystem moves forward, because this is an ecosystem that's created, you know, billions and billions of dollars of GDP, changed people's lives. It's an ecosystem worth enhancing but also protecting.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that ecosystem collaboration towards the end, but I just quickly, while we're still on the network, I just want to touch base on the latency aspect, particularly with self-driving cars. And one of the big features of 5G, I think, is potentially very low latency. So, Klas, just quickly, from a buyer's perspective, from a automotive company's perspective, how good has the latency got to be?
It needs to be a lot better.
Right.
That's for sure. And especially when we're talking about solutions that are related to connected safety.
Yeah.
In other means that we get real-time traffic information to be communicated from one type of road user to the infrastructure or to another road user. That information will be and can be crucial.
Yeah.
So of course, low latency is essential there. But at the same time, in automotive industry, we cannot rely upon that the latency is low and that communication is available. Because when it comes to automotive, the car and the road users in different type of transportation, they also need to be self-sustaining without any communication, so depending on safety reasons, etc. and so on. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Let's get all thoughts on that. So, I mean, how much can these guys rely on the cellular networks?
Right. No, I'm not in the car industry, but I can imagine that a spinning wheel in a collision avoidance situation is less desired. But I think that I'm pretty sure that what we're learning now from the car industry is that, and this will be applicable in many other occasions as we continue to drive the connectivity, the connected society, and that is that some of it is going to be self and independent of a connection. But when you can have one, you will be able to enhance and get data sharing with the network, with the cloud, with the back-end cloud, the connected vehicle cloud, as we call it in the automotive industry, and be able to assist everything that's happening on the onboard environment. And that's not going to be, now we're learning that technology and building it very much with the automotive industry. But that's going to be applicable for all kinds of devices that are moving around us, including robotics and other industries as well.
Yeah, yeah.
The latency then is very important. And we have set targets in 5G for latency below 3 milliseconds, perhaps 2, perhaps 1. Important in that is not only about the air interface, that's one part of it, but it's really through the entire network platform. That's why this big transformation is needed. And at the end of the day, the cloud that is owned by the vehicle industry will be a distributed one. It's impossible to just have it in one place.
Yeah.
All of that makes the network so relevant if it's really played out to the right level of understanding. So the clouds really know where all the devices are.
Yeah.
And it's exposed what latency can be produced, how a slice of that network could be dedicated to that particular item at any instance.
Yeah.
And as Julie said, all the technology is really coming there to do that.
Yeah.
Transformation is what's really left.
It needs to be implemented
Yeah.
in the system. Julie, just quickly, from a broader perspective, what are your customers, what would they like to see from the network that they're not getting today?
Well, we talk about today the internet's fit for business. So, you know, we all use, it's a vast resource, the most scalable resource we have. But is it fit for life? And if your medication or your transportation depends on it. So we've been doing some innovations to look at they're very simple technologies, but how do you make the internet predictable?
Right.
So that, you know, there's no point saying, oh, the latency at best is, you know, X milliseconds. If at worst, it could go twice around the world before it gets, you know, from your car to where it needs to go. So we can do this today. We've actually proven that, you know, a big part of the GDP of the world we can actually cover with predictable internet. So it's those, and it wasn't a massive R&D project. It was actually about thinking about how the internet works today and how, as an ecosystem, we can make changes that will permit this predictability. I think the other piece that we've not talked about is cybersecurity. I mean, I had a hilarious argument with my husband on Monday, got up early to go to the gym, found that the front door was open, the security gates were open, the Range Rover door was open, and his wallet was in the Range Rover. And I thought, I can't deal with this now. So I went to the gym, came back, and he was making, you know, smoothies, very nice husband. And I said, you'd left all these, you know, things open. He said, oh, you know, Julie, nobody's walking through the front gate now. It's all cybercrime. And I was like, okay, thank you. That was a touche. But I'm making light of it. I mean, the biggest virus cost the industries nearly 40 billion. Yeah. And I think you know, this network platform that we're all depending on more and more, there's a responsibility of care and duty, you know, for me to deliver clean data to the rest of the ecosystem, and for the rest of the ecosystem to deliver clean data to their touch points. Yeah. Because that will ultimately, I think, be the pinch point. It won't be technology or consumer pull. It will be, you know, is this actually safe? Is our data safe? You know, is my car going to be hacked? Is my dialysis machine going to be hacked?
Trust, essentially.
Has to be built in.
Yeah. Now we're running short of time, so we're just going to quickly wrap up. I want to give these guys some practical advice on how to move fast and yet partner effectively. These things can contradict each other sometimes. Just a couple of tips from each of you, perhaps. If we start with you, Klas, how do you partner quickly?
I think the partner aspect is important. Learn from other industries is crucial, both industries that are ahead of you, but also industries that are actually not as advanced as yourself are, because there are many different aspects of cross-learning. So that, I think, is one of these important aspects. The other area, don't forget the customer. It's so easy to focus on technology. And in our case with automotive, it's about the experience, convenience, satisfaction, image. You need to focus on that so you don't end up in just focus on the technology side. So those are the two pieces of advice I would provide.
Okay, good stuff. Ulf?
I think evolve your core assets. It's very important to the core assets of an operator. Then they're taking different routes, different strategies, and then trial and error. I think very good advice is to really be out there, engage, do things, learn, try to look for commonalities, scale it, and make it happen.
Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect.
Okay, Julie?
I would say don't hang on to your cash cows too long. As you see a market moving, it's better to get, an example, we were number 1 or 2 in signaling on the mobile side. And then when the market moves, you have to accept that that cash cow may, rather quickly change shape. And you may get a smaller share of the pot, but get in there and be part of the evolving ecosystem. Even if you're seeing a shift, top line and bottom line, it's better to get in early and build than actually be a passenger and watch and see one thing falling and see just a threat rather than an opportunity.
Yeah, that takes us back to convincing the CFO, which is a big theme of this conversation. So we're now out of time, but if you could join me in thanking the panel for a very interesting discussion. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Thank you.
So that actually concludes the keynote sessions for this morning. Enjoy the rest of the show, obviously. Be sure to visit the exhibition, the Catalyst programs, etc. Both the main conference sessions and the Executive Summit, which is for Platinum Pass holders, will begin at 11:45. So I think you've got a little bit of time for a quick coffee. But thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.